The sun had barely risen when the sound of a roaring engine shattered the peace of the old city cemetery. The air was cold and still, mist coiling around weathered tombstones like breath from the past. At the gate stood Rahim, the quiet tomb guard. For 12 years, he had watched over the graves, sweeping leaves, lighting candles left by mourners, and speaking softly to the dead as if they could still hear him. But that morning, the silence broke. A biker, face hidden behind a scratched helmet, sped down the narrow lane leading straight toward the cemetery. The bike skidded, gravel flew, and before Rahim could step aside, the man slammed into him, knocking him hard against the stone gate. Rahim crumpled, blood streaking his forehead. The biker cursed, ripped off his helmet, and barked, "Watch where you're standing, old man." He didn't even offer a hand. He revved his engine again, dust and fumes rising around the fallen guard, then disappeared into the dawn. Rahim stayed on the ground for a long while. His vision blurred, but one thing burned clear in his chest. It wasn't just pain. It was a promise. A promise that the man who disrespected the resting souls here would soon learn what happens when the dead are disturbed. 2 nights passed. The cemetery was silent again, its iron gates shut tight beneath the moonlight. Rahim returned to work, bruised but unbroken. His arm ached where he'd fallen, yet he swept the paths as usual, the rhythm of his broom slow, steady, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. But around midnight, a new sound crept in, the distant growl of a motorcycle. It came closer, then stopped just beyond the gate. Rahim's chest tightened. It's him. The biker, a young man named Tariq, stumbled off his bike, clutching his shoulder. His eyes darted around nervously. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here for something else. He kicked the gate open and shouted, "Anyone here?" Rahim stepped out of the shadows, his lantern flickering in the fog. "You shouldn't be here this late," Rahim said quietly. "The dead need their rest." Tariq scoffed. "Save your ghost stories, old man. I dropped my chain here that morning, my father's chain. I'm just getting it back." He pushed past Rahim and walked toward the graveyard's center, where the oldest tomb stood, a marble slab surrounded by rusted iron railings. But as he reached the spot, he froze. His chain was there, half buried in dirt, but beside it lay something else. A single candle, freshly lit, its flame unmoving in the wind. Tariq felt a chill race down his spine. He snatched the chain, turned to leave, but the gate behind him swung shut on its own. Rahim, still standing by the entrance, looked at him through the mist and said softly, "Some things don't like to be taken back." Tariq rattled the gate, but it wouldn't budge. The hinges screamed, yet the lock stayed tight, as if some invisible hand held it shut. "Hey, open this thing," he yelled. Rahim just stared. "It's not locked," he said. His calm voice carried strangely in the mist. But when Tariq yanked again, the iron felt like it was fused together. Then came the whisper. At first, Tariq thought it was the wind, a faint hum circling between the graves. But then the sound shaped into something clearer, words too soft to catch, moving closer. His skin crawled. "Who's there?" Rahim turned slowly. "You came back for a chain," he said, "but you left something else behind that morning." Tariq blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Respect," Rahim said simply. He pointed toward the tomb Tariq had walked over. The marble slab was cracked, not from time, but from the crash. Tariq's bike had smashed into it days ago when he hit Rahim. And now, from that crack, something cold seeped out. A faint shimmer of light, like fog mixed with glass dust, began to rise. The whispers grew louder, not angry, but mournful. Tariq stumbled back, clutching his chain. "What is that?" Rahim didn't move. The man buried there was a soldier, one who never came home. His rest was sacred. Tariq's heartbeat thundered. He tried to start his bike, but it refused to roar, only a choking cough of the engine, over and over. And then, the candle he'd seen earlier blew out on its own. The graveyard fell utterly silent. Tariq's hands trembled as he hit the bike starter again, and again, nothing. The headlight flickered once, then died. He looked up, breathing fast, his chain clenched tight in his fist. Rahim still stood a few meters away, calm as the mist curled around his feet. "Sometimes," Rahim said quietly, "the dead choose their own justice." A low hum rippled through the air. The cracked tomb began to shift. The ground trembled just a slightly, like a breath under the soil. Tariq staggered back, heart pounding, every muscle screaming to run. Then he saw it. The soldier's name carved on the stone began to glow faintly, letters burning with a cold blue light. Tariq's mind reeled. He dropped his chain. "This isn't real. This can't be real." He turned and sprinted toward the gate, but the fog thickened like a wall. His foot struck something hard, the very broom Rahim had been sweeping with earlier, and he fell face first onto the ground. When he looked up, Rahim was suddenly standing beside him. Not angry, not vengeful, just watching. "When I told you to respect the dead," Rahim said softly, "I wasn't warning you for me. I was warning you for him." The cold air tightened. From behind the tomb, Tariq heard the slow, rhythmic clink of metal, like boots and chains echoing from a faraway place. And then, silence again. Tariq scrambled to his feet, desperate to escape, but the fog parted for only a second, just enough for him to see the shape of a man standing at the cracked tomb. A silhouette in an old uniform, head bowed, one hand resting on his grave. Tariq froze. The figure slowly lifted his head, eyes, pale as moonlight, locked on his. And for the first time in his life, Tariq whispered a prayer. The figure stepped forward, its boots making no sound on the gravel. Tariq wanted to run, to scream, but his body wouldn't move, as if the air itself had thickened around him. The chain at his feet began to glow faintly, the metal pulsing with every beat of his heart. The soldier's voice came, low, echoing, more felt than heard. "You disrespected the resting and struck the keeper of the gate." Tariq shook his head wildly. I didn't mean to. It was an accident." The light grew brighter. The soldier raised his hand slowly, and the wind picked up, whirling dust and leaves into a spiral. Rahim stood still, his lantern held high, his face calm but solemn, like a judge witnessing a verdict he could not stop. The ghost's voice deepened. "Every act leaves a mark, even those done in haste." The chain lifted from the ground and wrapped gently, almost kindly, around Tariq's wrist. His body went weak. Visions flashed behind his eyes. Every reckless ride, every time he mocked someone weaker, every small cruelty he thought the world would forget. When the light finally dimmed, The ghost was gone. Only the wind remained, soft now, whispering through the graves like a sigh of peace. Tariq fell to his knees, tears cutting through the dust on his face. He turned toward Rahim. "I'm sorry for that day, for everything." Rahim nodded once. Apologies mean nothing if they end at the tongue. Let them live in your hands. He opened the gate. This time it swung easily. Tariq pushed his bike out slowly, the engine finally sputtering back to life. Before he rode away, he looked back and saw Rahim still by the tomb, head bowed, his lantern glowing faintly gold. The next morning, locals passing by found the grave newly restored,